Chapter 16. Percy. Percy thought he was hallucinating. It just wasn't possible that a huge silvery figure could drop out of the sky and stomp Kelly flat, trampling her into a mound of monster dust. But that's exactly what happened. The Titan was 10 feet tall, with wild silver Einstein hair, pure silver eyes, and muscular arms protruding from a ripped-up blue janitor's uniform. In his hand was a massive push broom. His name tag incredibly read Bob. Annabeth yelped and tried to crawl away, but the giant janitor wasn't interested in him. He turned over to the two remaining Imposia who stood over Percy. One was foolish enough to attack. She lunged with the speed of a tiger, but he never stood a chance. A spear jutted from the end of Bob's broom. With a single deadly swipe, he cut her to dust. The last vampire tried to run. Bob threw his broom like a massive boomerang. Was there such a thing as a boomerang? It sliced through the vampire and returned to Bob's hand. Sweep! The Titan grinned with delight and did a victory dance. Sweep, sweep, sweep! Percy couldn't speak. He couldn't bring himself to believe that something good had actually happened. Annabeth looked just as shocked. How? She stammered. Percy called me, the janitor said happily. Yes, he did. Annabeth crawled a little farther away. Her arm was bleeding badly. Called you? Wait. You're Bob, the janitor frowned when he noticed Annabeth's wounds. Owie! Anna flinched as he knelt next to her. It's okay, Percy said. Still woozy with pain? He's friendly. He remembered when he'd first met Bob. The Titan had healed a bad wound on Percy's shoulder just by touching it. Sure enough, the janitor tapped Annabeth's forearm, and it mended instantly. Bob chuckled and pleased with himself. Then he bounded off to Percy and healed his bleeding neck and arm. The Titan's hands were surprisingly warm and gentle. All better, Bob declared. His eerie silver eyes crinkled with pleasure. I am Bob, Percy's friend. Yeah, Percy managed. Thanks for the help, Bob. It's really good to see you again. Yes, the janitor agreed. Bob, that's me. Bobbity Yob. He shuffled around, obviously pleased with his name. I am helping. I heard my name upstairs in Hades' place. Nobody calls me Bob unless there's a mess. Bob sweeps up these bones. Bob mop up these tortured souls. Bob, a zombie, exploded in a dining room. Annabeth gave Percy a puzzled look, but he had no explanation. Then I heard my friend called. The Titan beamed. The Titan. Percy, said Bob. He grabbed Percy's arm and hoisted him to his feet. That's awesome, Percy said. But how did you... Oh, time to talk later. Bob's expression turned serious. We must go before they find you. They are coming. Yes, indeed. They, Annabeth asked. Percy sat in the horizon. He saw no one approaching. He saw no approaching monsters. Nothing but stark grey wasteland. Yes, Bob agreed. Bob knows a way. Come on, friends. We will have fun. Chapter 17. Frank worked up as a python, which puzzled him. Changing into animal wasn't confusing, but he did that all the time. But he had never changed from one animal to another in his sleep before. He's pretty sure he hadn't dozed off as a snake. Usually he slept like a dog. He discovered that he got through the night much better if he curled up on his bunk in the shape of a bulldog. For whatever reason, his nightmares didn't bother him as much. The constant screaming in his head almost disappeared. He had no idea why he'd become a reticulated python, but it did explain his dreams about slowly swallowing a cow. His jaw was still sore. He braided himself and changed back to a human form. Immediately, his splitting headaches returned along with the voices. "Fight them!" yelled Mars. "Take the ship! Defend Rome!" The voices shouted back. "Kill the Romans! Blood and death! Large guns!" His father's Roman and Greek personalities screamed back and forth in Frank's mind with the usual soundtrack of battle. Noises, explosion, all sorts of rifles, roaring jet engines, all throbbing like a subwoofer behind Frank's eyes. He sat up. He sat up his berth, dizzy with pain. And he did every morning. He took a deep breath and stared at the lamp on his desk. A tiny flame that burned night and day, fueled by magic olive oil from the supply room. Fire! Frank's biggest fear. Keeping an open flame in his room had terrified him, but it also helped him to focus. The noise in his head faded into the background, allowing him to think. He'd got better at this before days. He'd almost worth less. As soon as fighting broke out at Camp Jupiter, the war god's two voices started screaming non-stop. Ever since Frank had been stumbled around in a daze, barely able to function. He'd acted like a fool, and he was sure his friends thought he'd lost his marbles. Did they have any marbles? He couldn't tell them what was wrong. There was nothing they could do, and from listening to their talk, Frank was pretty sure they didn't have the same problem with their godly parents yelling in their ears. Just Frank's luck. But he had pulled it together. His friends needed him, especially now with Annabeth gone. Annabeth had been kind to him. Even when he was so distracted, he'd acted like a buffoon. Annabeth had been patient and helpful. While Ava screamed that Athena's children couldn't be trusted and miles below at him to kill all the Greeks, Frank had grown to respect Annabeth. Now that they were without her, Frank was the next best thing the group had to a military strategist. They would need him for the trip ahead. He rose and got dressed. Fortunately, he managed to buy some new clothes in Siena a couple of days ago, replacing the laundry that Leo had sent flying away on Bufford the table. Long story. He tagged on some levies and an army green t-shirt. Then reached for his favourite pullover before remembering he didn't need it. The weather was too warm. More important, he didn't need the pockets anymore. To protect the magical piece of firewood that controlled his lifespan, Hazel was keeping it safe for him. Maybe that should have made him nervous. If the firewood burned, Frank died, end of story. But he trusted Hazel more than he trusted himself. Knowing she was safeguarding, but his big weakness made him feel better. Like he'd fastened his seatbelt for a high-speed chase. He slung his bow and quivered on his shoulder. Immediately, they morphed into a regular backpack. Frank loved that. He would have known about the quiver's camouflage power if Leo hadn't figured it out for him. Leo, Mars raged. He must die! Throttle him out, Squire! Throttle everyone! Who are we talking about? They began shouting at each other again, over the sound of bombs exploding in Frank's skull. He steadied himself against the wall. 4 days Frank had listened to those voices demanding Leo Voldix's death. After all, Leo had started the war with Camp Jupiter by firing a ballistic in the forearm. Sure, he'd been possessed all the time, but still Mars demanded vengeance. Leo made things harder by constantly teasing Frank, and Aris demanding that Frank related for every insult. Frank kept the voices at bay, but it wasn't easy. On their trip across the Atlantic, Leo had said something that still stuck in Frank's mind when they'd learned that the day of the evil goddess had put a bounty on their heads. Leo wanted to know for how much. I can understand not being as pricey as Jason or Percy, he said, but I'm worth like 2 or 3 francs. Just another one of Leo's stupid jokes. But the comment hit a little too close to home. On the Argo 2, Frank definitely felt like the LVP, least valuable player. Sure, he could turn into animals, so what? His biggest claim to help. So far, he'd been changing into a weasel to escape from an underground workshop, and even that had Leo's good idea. Frank was better known for the giant goldfish fiasco in Atlanta, and just yesterday for turning into a 200-kilo gorilla, only to get knocked senselessly by a flash bang grenade. Leo hadn't made any gorilla jokes at his expense yet, but it was only a matter of time. Kill him! Torture him! Then kill him! The two sides of the war god seemed to be kicking and punching each other inside Frank's head, using his sinews as a wrestling mat. Blood, guns, Rome war! Quiet! Wait, what? Quiet down, Frank ordered. Amazingly, the voices obeyed. Okay then, Frank thought. Maybe he can finally get those annoying, screaming mini-gods under control. Maybe today would be a good day. That hope was shattered as soon as he climbed above the deck. What are they? Hazel asked. The Argo 2 was docked at a busy wharf. On one side stretched a shipping channel, about 1/2 kilometre wide. Yeah. Oh, on the other spread of the city of Venice, red-tiled roofs, metal church domes, steepled towers, and sun-bleached buildings in all the colours of Valentine candy hearts: red, white, ochre, pink, and orange. Everywhere there were statues of lions on top of the pedestals, over doorways, on the porticos of the largest buildings. There were so many. Frank figured the lion must be the city's mascot. Where the streets should have been, green canals etched their way through the neighbours, each one jammed with motorboats. Along the docks, the sidewalks were mobbed with tourists shopping at the T-shirt kiosks, overflowing from stores, and lounging across of outdoor cafe tables. Like pods of sea lions, Frank had thought Rome was full of tourists. This place was insane. Hazel and the rest of his friends weren't paying much attention to any of that. though they had gathered at the starboard rail to stare at a dozen of weird shaggy monsters milling through the crowd. Each monster was about the size of a cow, with a bowed back like a broken down horse, matted grey fur, skinny legs and black cloven hooves. The creatures' heads seemed much too heavy for their necks. Their long anteater-like snouts drooped to the ground. Their overgrown grey manes completely covered their eyes. Frank watched as one of the creatures lumbered across the promenade, snuffling and licking the pavement. With its long tongue told its parted around it unconcerned. If you even petted it. Frank wondered how the mortals could be so calm, though the monster's appearance flickered. For a moment it turned into an old fat beagle, chasing grunted. The mortals think they're stray dogs, or pets roaming around, Piper said. My dad should have filmed Venice once. I remember he telling me there were dogs everywhere. Venice loved dogs. Frank frowned. He kept forgetting that Piper's dad was Tristan McLean, A-list movie star. He didn't talk about him much. He seemed pretty down to earth for a kid raised in Hollywood. That was fine with Frank. The last thing they needed on this quest was paparazzi taking pictures of all Frank's epic fails. But where are they? He said, repeating Hazel's question. They look like starving, shaggy cows with sheepdog hair. He waited for someone to enlighten him. Nobody volunteered any information. Maybe they're harmless, Leo suggested. They're ignoring the mortals. Harmless, Gleason Hedge laughed. The satyr wore his usual gym shorts, sports shirt and coach's whistle. His expression was gruff as ever, but he still had one pink rubber band stuck in his hair from the prankster dwarfs in Bologna. Frank was kind of scared to mention it to him. Voldig, how many harmless monsters have we met? We just aim the ballistic and see what happens. No, Leo said. For once, Frank agreed with Leo. There were too many monsters. It would be impossible to target one without causing collateral damage to the crowd of tourists. Besides, if those creatures panicked and scampered, we'll have to walk through them and hope they're peaceful, Frank said, hating the idea already. It's the only way we're going to track down the owner of that book. Leo pulled the leather-bound manual from underneath his arm. He'd slapped a sticky note on the cover with the address the dwarfs in Bologna had given him. La Casa Nera, he read. Cali Frezera. The Black Horse, Nidianglo translated. Califrienza is the street. Frank tried not to flinch when he realized Michael was at his shoulder. The guy was so quiet and brooding, he almost seemed to dematerialize when he wasn't speaking. Hazel might have been the one who came back from the dead, but Nico was way more ghost-like. Do you speak Italian, Frank asked? Nico shot him a warning look like, watch the question. He spoke calmly through, though. Frank is right. We have to find that address. The only way to do it is to walk the city. Venice is a maze. We have to risk crowds and those, whatever they are. Thunder rumbled in the clear summer sky. They'd passed through some storms the night before. Frank had thought they were over, but now he wasn't sure. The air felt as thick as warm as a sauna steam. Jason frowned at the horizon. Maybe I should stay on board. Lots of venti in that storm last night. If they decide to attack that ship again, he didn't need to finish. They'd always enter with those angry wind spirits. Jason was the only one who had much luck fighting them. Coach had grunted, "Well, I'm out too if you soft-heart cupcakes are going to stroll through Venice without even whacking those furry animals on the air and the head. Forget it. I don't like boring expeditions." "It's okay," Coach Leo grinned. "We still have to repair the foremast. Then I need your help in the engine room. I've got a new idea for a new installation." Frank didn't like the gleam in Leo's eyes since Leo had found their Archimedes spear. He'd been trying out a lot of new installations. Usually they exploded or sent smoke billowing upstairs into Frank's cabin. "Well," Piper shifted her feet, whoever goes should be good with animals. I admit I'm not great with the cows." Frank figured that there was a story behind that comment, but he decided not to ask. "I'll go," he said. He wasn't sure why he volunteered. Maybe because he was anxious to be useful for it, or maybe he didn't want anyone beating him to the punch. Animals? Frank had turned into animals. Send him. He patted him on the shoulder and handed him the leather-bound book. "Awesome! If you pass hardware saw, could you get me some 2x4s and a gallon of tar?" "Leo," Hazel tried it. "It's not a shopping trip." "I'll go with Frank," Nico offered. Frank's eyes started twitching. The war gods rose to a crescendo in his head. "Kill him, Grace's scum." "No, I love Grace's scum." You're good with animals?" he asked. Nico smiled without humour. "Usually most animals hate me. They can sense death. But there's something about this city." His expression turned grim. "Lots of death. Restless spirits. If I go, I may be able to keep them at bay. Besides, as you noticed, I speak Italian." Leo scratched his head. Lots of deaths, huh? Personally, I'm trying to avoid lots of deaths, but you guys have fun." Frank wasn't sure what scared him more. Shaggy cow, monsters, hordes of restless ghosts, or going somewhere alone with Nico D'Angelo. "I'll go too." Hazel slipped her arm through Frank's. 3 is the best number for a demigod quest, right? Frank tried not to look too relieved. He didn't want to offend Nico, but he glanced at Hazel and told her with his eyes, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Nico stared at the candles, as if wondering what new and interesting forms of evil spirits might be lurking there. "All right then, let's go find the owner of that book." Chapter 18. Frank. Chapter 18. Frank might have liked Venice if it hadn't been summertime and tourist season. If the city wasn't overrun with large hairy creatures between the rows of old houses, and the canals of stone pavements were already too narrow for the crowds jostling one another and stopping to take pictures. The monsters made things worse. They shuffled around with their heads down, bumping into mortars and sniffing the ground. One seemed to find something it liked at the edge of a canal. It nipped and licked at a crack between the stones until it dislodged some sort of greenish root. The monster sucked into it happily and shambled along. "Where are the plant eaters?" Frank said. "That's good news." Hazel slipped her hand into his. "Unless they're supplement. They die with demigods. Let's hope not." Frank was so pleased holding her hand that the crowds and the heat and the monsters suddenly didn't seem so bad. He felt needed, useful. Not that Hazel required his protection. Anybody who'd seen her charging out on Arian with his sword drawn with next to her, imagining he was her bodyguard. If any of these monsters tried to hurt her, Frank would gladly turn into a rhinoceros and push them into the canal. Could he do a rhino? Frank had never tried that before. Nico stopped. There! He turned onto a small street, leaving the canal behind. Ahead of them was a small plaza with lined five-story buildings. The area was strangely deserted, as if the monsters could sense it wasn't safe. In the middle of the cobblestone courtyard, a dozen shaggy cow creatures were sniffing across the mossy base of an old stone well. Yeah, but look, like I said, past that archway. Nico's eyes must have been better than his. Frank squinted. At the far end of the plaza, a stone archway carved with lines led into a narrow street. Just past the arch, one of the town houses were painted black. The only black building Frank had seen so far in Venice. La Casanera, he guessed. Hazel's grip tightened on his fingers. I don't like that plaza. It feels cold. Frank wasn't sure what she meant. He was still sweating like crazy, but Nico nodded. He studied the town houses. So he studied the town houses' windows, most of which were covered with wooden shutters. You're right, Hazel. This neighborhood is filled with lemurs. Lemurs? Frank asked nervously. I'm guessing you don't mean the furry little guys from Madagascar. Angry growth, Nico said. Lemurs go back to Rome times. They hang around lots of Italian cities. But I've never felt so many in one place. My mum told me. He hesitated. She used to tell me stories about the ghosts of Venice. Again, Frank wondered about Nico's past. But he was afraid to ask. He caught Hazel's eye. Go ahead, she simply said. Nico needs practice talking to people. The sounds of assault rifles and atom bombs got louder in Frank's head. Mars and Ares were trying to out-sync each other with Dixie and the battle hymn of Replica. She used to tell me stories about the ghost of Venice. Frank did his best to push that aside. Nico, your mum was Italian, he guessed. She was from Venice. Nico nodded recurrently. She met Hades here. Back in the 1930s, as World War II got closer. She fled to the US with my sister and me. I mean, Bianca, my other sister. I don't remember thinking much about Italy. I can still speak the language. Frank tried to think of a response. Oh, that's nice, he seemed to cut it. He was hanging out with not one, but two demigods who'd been pulled out of time. They were both technically about 70 years older than he was. Must have been hard on your mum, Frank said. I guess we'll do anything for someone we love. Hazel squeezed his hand appreciatively. Nico stared at his cobblestones. Yeah, he said bitterly. I guess we will. Frank wasn't sure what Nico was thinking. He had a hard time imagining Nico D'Angelo acting out of love for anybody, except maybe Hazel. But Frank decided he'd gone as far as he dared with personal questions. So the lemons he swallowed. How do we avoid them? I'm already on it, Nico said. I'm sending out the messages that they should stay away and ignore us. Hopefully that's enough. Otherwise, things could get messy. Hazel pursed her lips. Let's get going, she suggested. Halfway across the piazza, everything went wrong, but it had to do with ghosts. They were skirting well in the middle of the square, trying to give the cow monsters some distance, when Hazel stumbled on a loose piece of cobblestone. Frank caught her. 6 or 7 of the big grey beasts turned to look at them. Frank glimpsed a glowing green eye under one's mane, and instantly he was hit with a wave of nausea, the way he felt when he ate too much of cheese or ice cream. The creatures made deep throbbing sounds in their throats like angry frog horns. Nice cows, Frank murmured. He put himself between his friends and the monsters. Guys, I'm thinking we should back out of here slowly. I'm such a klutz, Hazel whispered. Sorry. It's not your fault, Nico said. Look at your feet. Frank glanced down and caught his breath. Under their shoes, the paving stones were moving. Spiky plant tendrils were pushing up from the cracks. Nico stepped back. The roots snaked out in his direction, trying to follow. The tendrils got thicker, exuding a steamy green vapour that smelled of boiled cabbage. These roots seemed to like demigods, Frank noted. Hazel's hand drifted to her sword hilt, and the cow creatures liked the roots. And the cow creatures liked the roots too. The entire herd was now looking their direction, making foghorn growls and stamped their hooves. Frank understood animal behaviour well enough to get the message. You are standing on our food. That makes you our enemies. Frank tried to think. There were too many monsters to fight. Something about their eyes hidden under those shaggy manes. Frank had got 6 from the barest glimpse. He had a bad feeling that if those monsters make direct eye contact, he might get a lot worse than nausea. Don't meet their eyes, Frank warned. I'll distract them. You two back up slowly towards that black house. The creatures tensed, ready to attack. Never mind, Frank said. Run! As it turned out, Frank could not turn into a rhino, and he lost valuable time trying. Nico and Hazel had bolted for the side street. Frank stepped in front of the monsters, hoping to keep their attention. He yelled at the top of his lungs, imagining himself as a fearsome rhinoceros, but with Eris and Mars screaming in his head, he didn't concentrate. He remained regular old Frank. 2 of the cow monsters peeled off from the herd to chase Nico and Hazel. No! Frank yelled at them. Me and the rhino! The rest of the herd surrounded Frank. They growled, emerald green gas below from their nostrils. Frank stepped back to avoid the stuff, but the stench nearly knocked him over. Okay, so not a rhino, something else. Frank knew he had only seconds before the monster trampled or poisoned him. He couldn't think. He couldn't hold the image of any animal long enough to change form. Then he glanced at one of the townhouse balconies and saw a stone carving, symbol of Venice. The next instant, Frank was a full-grown lion. He roared in challenge and sprang from the middle of the monster's herd and landed 8 meters away on top of the old stone. Well, the monsters growled in reply. 3 of them sprang at once, but Frank was ready. His lion reflexes were built for speed in combat. He slashed the first 2 monsters into dust with his claws. then sank his fangs into the third one's throat and tossed it aside. There were 7 left, plus the 2 chasing his friends. Not great odds. But Frank had to keep the bulk of herd focused on him. He roared at the monsters and they edged away. They outnumbered him, yes. But Frank was top of the chain predator. The herd monsters knew it, but they also had watched him send 3 of his friends to Tartarus. He pressed his advantage and leaped off the well. Still, baring his fangs, the herd backed off. If he could just maneuver around them, then turn around, run after his friends. He was doing all right until he took his first backward step towards the ark. One of their cows, either the bravest or the stupidest, took that as a sign of weakness. It charged and blasted Frank in the face with green gas. He slashed the monster to death, but the damage was already done. He forced himself not to breathe. Regardlessly, he could feel the fur burning off his snout. His eyes stung. He staggered back, half blind and dizzy, dimly aware of Nico screaming his name. Frank! Frank! He tried to focus. He was back in human form, retching and stumbling. His face felt like it was peeling off. In front of him, the green clouds of gas floated between him and the herd. The remaining cow monsters eyed him warily, probably wondering if Frank had any more tricks up his sleeve. He glanced behind him. Under the stone ark, Nico the Anglo was holding his black stallion iron sword, gesturing at Frank to hurry. At Nico's feet, 2 puddles of darkness stained the ground. No doubt the remainings of the cow monsters that had chased him. And Hazel, he was propped against the wall behind her brother. He wasn't moving. Frank ran towards them, forgetting about the monster herd. He rushed past Nico and grabbed Hazel's shoulders. Her head slumped back against her chest. She got a blast of green gas right in the face, Nico said. Miserably, I wasn't fast enough. Frank could tell if he was breathing. Rage and despair battled inside him. He'd always been scared of a Nico. How? He wanted to drop kick the son of Hades into the nearest canal. Maybe that wasn't fair. But Frank didn't care. Neither did the war god, screaming in his head. We need to get her back to the ship, Frank said. The cow monsters heard prowled cautiously just beyond the archway. They bellowed their foghorn cries from nearby streets. More monsters answered. Reinforcements would soon have the demigods surrounded. We'll never make it by foot, Nico said. Frank, turn into a giant eagle. Don't worry about me. Get her back to the Iago too. With his face burning and the voices screaming in his mind, Frank wasn't sure he could change. To try when a voice behind them said, "Your friends can't help you. They don't know the cure." Frank spun round. Standing on the threshold of the black house was a young man in jeans and a denim shirt. Denim shirt. He had curly black hair and a friendly smile, though Hank doubted he was friendly. Probably he wasn't even human. At the moment, Frank didn't care. "Can you cure her?" he asked. "Of course," the man said, "but you better hurry inside. I think you've agreed. Every catalepsy in Venice." Chapter 19. Frank. They barely made it inside. As soon as their host threw the bolts, the cow monsters bellowed and slammed into the doors, making it shudder on its hinges. "Oh, they can't get in," the man named Denim told me. "You're safe now." "Safe?" Frank demanded. "Hazel is dying!" Their host frowned, as if he didn't appreciate Frank ruining his good mood. Yes, bring her this way." Frank carried Hazel as they followed the man further into the building. Michael offered to help, but Frank didn't need it. Hazel weighed nothing. and Frank's body hummed with adrenaline. He could feel Hazel shivering, so at least he knew she was alive. But her skin was cold, her lips had taken on a greenish tinge, or was that just Frank's blurry vision? His eyes still burned from the monster's breath. His lungs felt like he'd inhaled a flaming cabbage. He didn't know why the gas had affected him less than it had Hazel. Maybe she'd gotten more in her lungs. She wouldn't have given anything to change places if it meant saving her. The voices of Mars and Ares yelled in his head, urging him to kill Nico and the man in denim, and anyone else he could find. But Frank forced down the noise. The house's front room was some sort of greenhouse. The walls were lined with tables of plant trays under fluorescent lights. The air smelled of fertilizer solution. Maybe Venetians did their gardening inside, since they were surrounded by water instead of soil. Frank wasn't sure, but he didn't spend much time worrying about it. The back room looked like a combination of a garage, college, dorm, and a computer lab. Against the left wall, glowed a bank of servers and laptops, their screensavers flashing pictures of plough fields and tractors. Against the right wall was a single bed, a messy desk, and open wardrobes filled with extra denim clothes and a stack of farm implements like pitchforks and rakes. The back wall was a huge garage door. Parked next to it was a red and gold chariot with an opening chariot and a single axle like the chariot Frank had raced at Camp Jupiter. Sprouting the sides of the driver's box were giant feathery rings wrapped around the rim of the left wheel. And a spotted python snored loudly. Frank hadn't known that pythons could snore. He hoped he hadn't done that himself in python form last night. "Set your friend here," said the man in denim. Frank placed Hazel gently on the bed. He removed her sword and tried to make her comfortable, but she was as slim as a scarecrow, complexion definitely a little greenish tint. Definitely had a little greenish tint. All those cow things, Frank demanded. What did they do to her? Catoblepones, said the host. Singular. Catoblepones in English. It means down low. Call that because they always look down. Always looking down. Nico smacked his forehead. Right, I remember reading about them. Frank glared at him. Now you remember. Michael hung his head almost as low as a caterpillar's blebs. I used to play this stupid card game when I was younger. My Throw Magic. The Caterpillars was one of the monster cards. Frank blinked. I played My Throw Magic, and I saw that card. It was an Africanus Extreme Expansion deck. Oh, the host cleared his throat. Are you two done? Geeking out, as they say? Right, sorry, My Throw Magic. Anyway, Caterpillars have poison breath and poison gaze. I thought they only lived in Africa. The man in denim shrugged. That's their native land. They were accidentally imported to Venice hundreds of years ago. You've heard of Saint Mark. Hazel wanted to scream with frustration. He didn't even see how any of this was relevant. But if their host could heal Hazel, Frank decided maybe it would be best not to make him angry. Saints, they're not part of Greek mythology. The man in denim chuckled. No, but Saint Mark is the patron saint of the city. He died in Egypt, a long time ago. When the Venetians became powerful, the relics of saints were a big tourist attraction back in the Middle Ages. The Venetians decided to steal St. Mark's remains and bring them to their big church of San Marco. They smuggled out his body in a barrel of pickled pig parts. That's disgusting, Frank said. Yes, the man agreed with a smile. The point is, you can't do something like that and not have consequences. The Venetians unintentionally smuggled something else out of Egypt. The Caterpillars. They came here aboard that ship and have been breeding like rats ever since. They love the magical poison roots that grow here, swampy, foul, smelling plants that creep us from the canals. It makes their breath smell even poisonous. Usually the monsters ignore mortals, but demigods, especially demigods who get in their way. Got it, Frank snapped. Can he cure her? The man shrugged. Possibly? Frank had to use all his willpower not to throttle the guy. He put his hand under Hazel's nose. He couldn't feel her breathe. Nico, please tell me she's doing the death trance thing like it did in the bronze jar. Nico grimaced. I don't know if Hazel can do that. Hazel's dad is technically Pluto, not Hades. So, Hades! Cried their host. He backed away, staring at Nico. At Nico with distaste. So what's that? So that's what I smell. Children of the underworld. If I'd known that, I would never have let you in. Frank rose. Hazel is a good person. You promised you would help her. I did not promise. Nico drew her sword. She's my sister, he growled. I don't know who you are, but if you can cure her, you have to also. Help me by the whisper Sykes. Oh, blah, blah, blah. The man waved his hand. Suddenly, where Nico the angler had been standing, was a potted plant about 5 feet tall, dripping with green leaves. Tufts of silk and half a dozen ripe yellow ears of corn. There, the man huffed, wagging his finger at the corn plant. Children of Hades, you can't order me around. You talk less and listen more. Now, at least you have ears. Frank stumbled against the bed. What did you? Why? The man raised an eyebrow. Frank made a squeaky noise. That wasn't very courageous. He'd been so focused on Hazel, he'd forgotten what Leo had told him about the guy they were looking for. "You're a god," he remembered. "Triptolemus," the man bowed. My friends call me Trip. So don't call me that. And if you're another child of Hazel's? Mars, Frank said quickly. Child of Mars. Mars, Frank said quickly. Child of Mars. Triptolemus sniffled. Well, not much better, but perhaps you deserve to be something better than a corn plant. Sorghum is very nice. Wait, Frank pleaded. We're here on a friendly mission. We brought a gift. Very slowly, he reached into his backpack. We brought out the leather-bound book. This belongs to you? My Alamanus, Triptolemus grinned and seized the book. He thumped through the pages and stared at the bouncing on the board of his feet. Oh, this is fabulous! Where did you find it? Bologna. There were these. Frank remembered that he wasn't supposed to mention dwarfs. Terrible monsters. We risked our lives, but we knew this was important to you. So could you maybe, turn Nico back to normal and heal Hazel? Trip looked up from his book. He'd been happily reciting lies of himself. Something about the turnip planting schedules. Frank wished that Ella, the harpy, were here. She would get along great with this guy. Oh, heal them, Triptolemus clucked, disapproving. I'm grateful for the book, of course. I could definitely let you go free, son of Mars. But I have a long-standing problem with Hades. After all, I owe my godly powers to Dementor. Frank racked his brain, but it was hard with the voices screaming in his head and the Catopulus blebs poison making him dizzy. A Dementor, he said. The plant goddess. She didn't like Hades because suddenly he recalled an old story he'd heard at Camp Jupiter. Her daughter, Proserpine, Persephone, Trip corrected. I prefer the Greek, if you don't mind. Kill him, Mars screamed. I love this guy, Ares yelled back. Kill him anyway. Frank decided not to take offense. He didn't want to get turned into a sorghum plant. Okay, Hades kidnapped for Persephone. Exactly, Trip said. So Persephone was a friend of yours. Trip snorted. I was just the mortal prince back then. Persephone wouldn't have noticed me, but when her mother, Dementor, went searching for her, scouring the whole earth, not many people would help her. Hecate lit her way at night with her torches, and when Dementor came to my part of Greece, I gave her a place to stay. I comforted her, gave her a meal, and offered my assistance. I didn't know she was a goddess at the time, but my good deed paid off later. Later, Dementor rewarded me by making me a god of farming. Wow, Frank said, farming, congratulations. I know, pretty awesome, right? Anyway, Dementor never got along with Hades, so naturally, I have to side with my patron goddess. Children of Hades, forget it. In fact, one of them, the Scythian king named Lycanos, when I tried to teach his countrymen about farming, he killed my white python. Your white python? Trip marched over to his winged chariot and hoped. He pulled a lever, and the wings began to flap. He spotted a python on the left wheel, opened his eyes. He started to rip, coiling around around the axle like a spring. The chariot whirled into motion, but the right wheel stayed in place, so Triptolemus spun in circles. The chariot beating its wings and bouncing up and down like defective merry-go-round. He said as he spun, "No good! Ever since I lost my white python, I haven't been able to spread the word about farming, at least not in person. Now I have to resort to giving online courses. What? As soon as he said it, Frank was sorry he'd asked. Trip hopped off the chariot while it was still spinning. The Python slowed to a stop and went back to snoring. Trip jogged over to the line of computers. He tapped the keyboard and the screens woke up, displaying our website in maroon and gold, with a picture of a happy farmer in a toga and a farmer's hat, standing with his bonsai in a field of wheat. Tritompolis Farming University announced sadly. In just 6 weeks, you get your bachelor's degree in the exciting and vibrant career of the future, farming. Frank felt a bead of sweet trickle down his cheek. He didn't care about this crazy god or his snake-powered chariot or his online degree programs. But Hazel was turning greener by the moment. Nico was a corn plant, and he was alone. Look, he said, we did bring you the almanac, and my friends. And my friends are really nice. They're not like those other children of Hazel you've met. So if there's any more... Try snapped his fingers. I see where you're going. You do? Absolutely. If you call your friend Hazel and return the other one, Nico. If I return it normal, Frank hesitated. Yes. Has Frank hesitated? Yes. Then exchange, you stay with me and take up farming. A child of mine as my apprentice. Perfect. What a spokesman you'll be. You can beat swords in plowshares and have so much fun. Actually, Frank tried frantically to come up with a plan. Eris and Mars screamed in their heads. Swords, guns, massive kaboom! If he declined Trip's offer, Frank figured he would often the guy end up as a sorghum or wheat or some other cash crop. If it was only the way to save Hazel, then sure, he could agree to Trip's demands and become a farmer. But that couldn't be the only way. Frank refused to believe he'd been chosen by fate to go on this quest, just so he could take online course in turnip cultivation. Frank's eyes wandered to the broken chariot. To his broken chariot. I have a better offer, he blurted out. I can fix that. Trip's smile melted. Fix my chariot. Frank wanted to kick him. What was he thinking? He wasn't Leo. He couldn't even figure out a stupid pair of Chinese handcuffs. He could barely change the batteries in a TV remote. He couldn't fix the magical chariot. But something told him it was his only chance. That chariot was the only thing Triptolemus might really want. I'll go find a way to fix the chariot, he said. In return, you fix Nico and Hazel. Let us go in peace and give us whatever aid you can defeat Gaia's forces. Tritomulus laughed. What makes you think I can aid you with that? Hecate told us so, Frank said. She sent us here. She decided Hazel is one of her favourites. The colour drained from Trip's face. Hecate! Frank hoped he wasn't overstating things. He didn't need Hecate mad at him too. But if Triptolemus and Hecate were both friends of the Venter, maybe that would convince Trip to help. The goddess guided us to your almanac in Bologna, Frank said. She wanted us to return it to you because, well, she must have known you had some knowledge that would help us get through the house of Hades in Epirus. Trip nodded slowly. Yes, I see. I know why Hecate sent you to me. Very well, son of Mars. Go find a way to fix my chariot. If you succeed, I'll do all you asked. If not, I know Frank grumbled, my friends die. Yes, Trip said cheerfully. And if you make a lovely patch of sore hum,